You are listening to the 90 Days Later podcast with Anna Charles, episode 192. Welcome to the 90 Days Later podcast, where we talk about what really happens when you take a break from drinking. And it turns out to be the best thing you've ever done. I'm Anna, coach to high achievers who are done waking up with regret and ready to feel in control around alcohol. If you've ever wondered what your life could look like with less wine and more you, you're in the right place. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the podcast. For those of you who are maybe listening for the first time, welcome. I'm Anna Charles, and I used to drink too much. I used to be a bit of a daily drinker. I never resonated with the idea of being alcoholic. I knew that was not me. But I struggled with this and thought I was kind of always going to struggle. And then I figured it out and I don't anymore. So I turn up and show up every week and give you and drop you pearls of wisdom. Now, today, this episode is actually quite an emotional one for me. I will admit that after 191 episodes, this one, today's, is the one I would have recorded for past Anna. This is in fact the episode I needed to hear. And if you relate to my story at all, right, super high achiever, but struggled with drinking as like the one area in my life that didn't kind of work in my view, then today's episode is going to blow your mind with how to think differently about the old I deserve it story. Yes, we are talking about what happens when wine is the reward, or when wine was the reward and now you're not drinking. And what does that mean, right? Because maybe you have decided, maybe you've already decided, I don't want to use wine as my me time. I don't want to have to earn my rest with alcohol. I don't want to rely on a drink to get through the week. Maybe you even are rejecting your old story, right? That I deserve it. Maybe you logically, many of my clients tell me this, you logically see this doesn't make sense, right? So you're kind of trying to move away from that. But here's what happens. Once you take the wine away, right? Once you take that away as the reward, there is this sneaky little question that slips in and you may not even see it. But it is simply this: what now? Right now, what has happened is there is a gap. You've opened up a gap. You know you don't want to reach for the bottle, but you also believe that nothing else seems to really kind of scratch the itch, right? That's something my clients tell me all the time. It's the wine that scratches the itch. And then what happens is you feel, well, kind of flat, actually. Unsettled, maybe even a little deprived. It may not even be that bad, but everything just seems a bit meh, a bit grey, right? And here's what happens if you do not address this gap, right? You do not go and say, okay, what am I going to do about this? You are going to go back to what worked, because wine did work. That's what your brain will remind you, at least for a while. Now, first, let's talk about why it felt like wine was the ultimate reward, right? This is why wine works so well. And this is sort of a biological thing we're going to talk about here. Because what happens is when you drink, your blood alcohol level rises, and it rises quickly. If you've seen one of those graphs, those stock chart graphs, this goes from, it's like a real, not even a hockey stick. It's just a very sharp increase. Within minutes, you feel the effect. You might feel warmth, might feel release, a certain softening, right? You just might feel maybe at peace, right? You feel a bit numbing. Now, this is your brain responding to alcohol by slowing everything down. I mean, that's what it does. It slows it all down. And when it does this, it creates this very quick acting sense of calm. I mean, it really feels like a shortcut to switching off. People tell me all the time, I just want to switch my brain off, Anna. I just want to switch my mind off. And by the way, you can have some of this impact even before you've had a first sip, right? Have you ever experienced that kind of anticipation? Like maybe it's 3 PM and you know you're not going to crack open the Chablis at 3 PM in the office. I mean, you just never do that. On a month of Sundays, you wouldn't do that. but you know it's getting closer to the end of the day, and you know that there's a Chablis in your bottle of Chablis in your fridge, right? And we can anticipate how it's going to feel. We can anticipate the relief. It's kind of sitting there, right? And then we can have also then a very physical reaction in that moment, right? We can feel a sense of a calm coming over us just by thinking about the reward. And so what happens is, because this happens all really quickly, because the wine works really fast, your brain learns to rely on it. And then it stops being just a treat and it starts being relief. So when we think of a glass of wine, it was our reward for getting through the day. It's kind of like a treat. You only need to repeat that a few times for that to become totally normalized, right? And that just then becomes normal behavior, which equates to relief. So it stops really being reward and it starts to be relief, even if we might use the words, I deserve it, it's my reward. So what happens is, when you take the shortcut away, right, you remove the wine and you don't put something meaningful in its place, your brain is going to say, well, that didn't work, right? This doesn't feel very good. This isn't so interesting. Don't like this. Let's just go back to the wine. And this is why you might ping pong. You might be good for days, weeks, months. I even had clients who've been good for a year and then just go straight back to it. Right? Because we have this, oh, that didn't work. Let's go back to the wine. Now, this reward pattern, this that I see often as in 3 words, I deserve it. You could even use that advertising slogan, I'm worth it. But I deserve it is how it most commonly shows up. And this can show up in so many ways. You might power through the week, being alcohol free all week. You're telling yourself Friday's wine is coming. Right? You might use it to push through something you've been avoiding. So maybe you've really been avoiding having a conversation. You think, well, at least when I've done that, I can have some wine, or I'll reward myself with wine. Or maybe this shows up as part of a cheat day, right? Maybe you're being fairly strict with a diet or a workout. And again, this is back to being good, right? Being perfect and being good. And then you're gonna have a cheat day, and then wine is there. I can have the wine. It's kind of like my cheat. But one of the most common versions I see is this: that you actually start the day already drained, right? You're either emotionally, physically, or both drained. And then somewhere around 4 or 5, that thought shows up, I deserve a drink. And we may be drained just because we're always trying to do all the things. And we may be drained even because maybe while we are trying to get rid of the I deserve it thought, maybe we were drinking still the night before and the night before that. And that has an impact over time as well. Now, this thought, I deserve a drink, has its own momentum. You might hear yourself think, maybe I'll just stop by the shop. Maybe I'll just grab a bottle because there's not enough at home. And maybe you say, well, I could get some bread at the same time, right? Try to make it seem more sensible. Or, because I'm really going to need it after the day I've had. Or maybe you think, maybe I'll open a bottle, just reward myself. Or maybe you'll get a bottle of wine just in case, right? Because you think the day is going to be really hard. I've had clients do this. They tell me, Anna, I knew that day was going to be hard. So I knew I was going to need deserve a reward to get through it. This is before we've even stepped out of the door. Before anything's happened. We have no idea if the day is going to be hard, but we've already kind of consigned it as being hard. And then we get into, just one, I've earned it. Or maybe if there's a hint of rebel in you, you might think, well, if I want a drink, I'm going to jolly well have one. I am a grown up, right? So this is what happens. Now, if this sounds familiar, I want to walk you through a few things that you are probably not doing, at least just yet, right? First, you are probably not normalizing the fact that emotional and physical exhaustion is part of being human. Not every day is going to be stress-free and non-draining, right? You are not broken for feeling tired. You are not lazy for wanting a rest. But if you treat every dip in energy like a problem, your brain will keep looking for quick fixes, right, to feel better. So that's the first one. Second, this is the other thing you're probably not doing. Second, you're probably not setting boundaries. I bet you're not setting boundaries, or another way of putting it, prioritizing your own well-being. Many clients tell me, I really do deserve it, Anna. Right? It's my way of slowing down and stopping. I'm always doing everything for everyone else. I see this particularly if you've also got a family to be dealing with, and you're maybe you've got parents, you're looking after children, you're looking after, and you're holding down a full-time job. Right? This is when people, they give. Right? We're always giving from the minute we wake up, and then they reach for a drink almost as a way to claim back a little space. This is why if you say, oh, this is just something for me, right? This is for me, nobody else, right? It can feel richly rewarded and deserving. But the real issue isn't the drink. It's really the lack of boundaries that made you think that the drink was necessary in the first place, right? You see what we're doing there? We're going further back. We're not just looking at the end result. We're saying, I deserve it. We're looking how you get to that position. Here's the third thing you're probably not doing. I bet you're not giving yourself permission to simply rest. And this is sneaky, because even when you sit down, right, your brain is still going. And here's something I hear a lot, right? I'm trying to relax without drinking, but it doesn't work. Even if I sit down, my brain is still sort of like go, go, go. And here's an even sneakier way this shows up. Maybe when you have that sit down, you aren't actually doing work stuff, right? Maybe you've got your job and you're not thinking about that. But instead you're planning your family's meals for the week. You're going to say, oh, this is that 5 minutes I needed to plan so I can plan the family shop. And maybe you're double checking that your son did receive the email that you sent him, right? We're still doing stuff. And listen, if your brain believes you haven't earned rest, right, if it still thinks you haven't earned it, you haven't done enough, then no amount of tea or meditation or any other things that you might use to plug the wine gap are going to make you feel good, right? Because we're still thinking, I haven't earned this. And then fourth, you're probably not making your life more sustainable. If you are constantly pushing, constantly hustling, overextending yourself, however that shows up for you, then of course your brain is going to crave relief. Right? Think about it. If you had a machine, if a car just carried on getting hotter and hotter and hotter, working, going up a hill, right? The revs were dropping, it just kept... Of course it's going to need relief at some point. We are humans. We are not meant to be on the go all the time. But here's what's happening when we then have a drink. We think, there we go, that creates the relief. But it really isn't. The wine is not fixing that, even if you believe that to be true. I just want you to consider that you might be wrong. I want you to consider my view, the one thing I have learned and that I teach is that wine isn't fixing any of this. It's really just pushing the pressure down for another day. It's like, if I can just get through the day. But then we go back, wake up the next day, and it's all still there. So let's talk about what your brain is learning when wine becomes your reward. And again, I want to talk about this stuff because I want you to understand the why. I want you to understand what's going on, because I totally believe that when people understand more of this, it helps us to be then taking the action, or at least helps us to understand why we resist taking action. Right? So what happens when your brain is learning what your brain is learning when wine becomes your reward? Firstly, it is learning that you need to earn rest. Right? That relaxation has to be bought with effort. It's a trade. Second, it is learning that wine is relief, so that when things feel hard or they feel overwhelming or confusing, your brain is going to bring up wine as the fastest route to feeling better. Most direct route, right? It's like we all want the direct flight. This is the most direct route. Third, alcohol isn't neutral in your system. Yes, it helps you feel relaxed at first. And that's, as I said just now, because it slows down your brain and your body. It's almost like hitting the dimmer switch on your nervous system. It sort of takes the volume down of the stress. But that relaxed feeling doesn't last. And then once it wears off, once the alcohol wears off, your brain, what it tries to do is tries to rebalance by switching everything back on, and often it overcorrects. And this is why you might wake up feeling tense or anxious or wired, even if nothing's wrong, right? We're kind of out of balance. This is why so many people feel more stressed the day after drinking, even though drink was supposed to help. That's exactly why. And the fourth, when you rely on wine, you're not learning other ways to regulate your nervous system. All right? This is back to being a human, right? We're going to have these swings and things that happen in our lives. But when we're relying on alcohol, we are only learning how to be more skilled at using alcohol to get through the day, right? As we do that, we are not learning how to rest. You are not learning and building tools that will help you cope with pressure. So the glass does truly become the shortcut, right? But you will just never learn a different skill. As long as you're relying on that, you are just never going to be willing to try another skill, try another way. And why is that? Because our brains are inherently lazy. They like habits, and they're quite happy to carry on doing the same thing, even if you logically know you don't want that. And this is where a lot of people try to swap wine for something else, and they get unstuck, right? And then they start eating chocolate or watching too much TV or hours of TV, and they're scrolling on their phone, right? And while some of this might feel better in the short term, and I often hear people say, and I see this a lot on the message boards, at least I'm not drinking a bottle of wine. Then by doing these other things, like doing all the eating or all the scrolling and so on, it doesn't solve the root issue. They're just another variation on a theme. So this isn't about replacing wine with something else that numbs you. Yes, I'm sorry if that is disappointing, but we're not going to be doing that. This is all about redefining what reward actually looks like. And this can be fun. This can be sort of a positive way and a fun way to look at the future. And it can be super simple. I want to offer that. Now, one client told me that her new reward after being on the feet all day, she has a very hectic, intense job. Her new reward is to, when she gets home, is to lie down on the floor with her legs up against the wall. That's it, right? Just doing that. Another told me that she now has a long bath, or she makes time for a bath. Doesn't always have to be long, but she makes time for a bath in the evening. There's just no interruptions. She doesn't have an iPad there or anything. She doesn't try and read a book. She just sits in the bath. And for somebody else, it was simply a hot cup of tea, drinking that in silence. And for me, I know that if I'm really feeling a bit overextended, just sitting still, literally sitting still with a cup of tea and not doing anything is a great way to calm myself down, right? So I'm not talking here about spending an hour meditating or even any meditating if you don't like that. This is just simple ways to rebalance and regroup. And none of this really sounds very important. It may even sound a bit silly, but really it's not about the what you're doing. It's about the message you're giving yourself. It's about saying, I am allowed to stop. I'm allowed to lie down and put my legs up against the wall because that feels good for me. I am allowed to feel good, right? Without needing to check out to get there. I don't need to check out of my brain and be drinking all the wine and then only coming back online when it's time to decide if I want a second glass and then going offline again. I don't need that to relax. I really don't, right? Now, if wine has been the reward for you, and you're listening to this and you're thinking, but nothing else feels good yet, Anna. I mean, nothing. I mean, it really is. I am the one person, because I often say I've worked with all the types of drinkers. I work with people who drink home alone, only socially, to numb their feelings, to keep the party going. I mean, the whole thing, all of it, right? To deal with pain. But if you're one of those people, and if you're listening and saying that nothing else works, Anna, I don't want you to panic. It just means, how about this way of rewriting it for yourself? It just means that your brain is still expecting fast relief, not real replenishment. It's a bit like those old cars. I have an old car. Yes, I'm going to give you a driving analogy here. If you a regular listener, you know I like my driving analogies. This one isn't parking though. So I have a really old car and it has a reserve fuel tank in it, but it is not like the modern cars where it kind of, just the when you're getting low on fuel, that it just, then you get a signal, on the gauge, it says it's now in the red. No, with this car, you actually have to physically depress a button, it's a switch on the floor to engage the reserve tank, or you will run out, right? You'll have petrol in your reserve tank, but it won't automatically move to that. So you have to depress this pedal. That's the word I was looking for, a pedal, to engage the reserve tank. And if you are constantly teaching and reinforcing to your brain that you need fast relief, right? That's the only way to go, not real replenishment. It's like you're constantly pushing that pedal to engage the reserve tank, right? And if you're constantly in the reserve tank, you're not in the main tank, right? So you're going to constantly be filling up that little reserve tank that doesn't have much fuel in it. You're going to get to the petrol station, have to refill that because you would fill that separately. This whole thing, right? Rather than, if you get into real replenishment, you'd then be working from the main fuel tank where you can go hundreds of miles without stopping. So that's all that's happened to you. You're still in seeking fast relief, not real replenishment. This takes time to learn. This is a skill, right? Now, the real reward is never about the drink. The real reward is really a life where you don't feel like you need one to feel okay. Let me just say that again. I really think this is powerful. This is what I have learned for myself since, completely upending my relationship with alcohol. The real reward is never the drink. The real reward is actually a life where you don't need one to feel okay. Now listen, if wine has become your reward at the end of the day, and you are wondering, could you ever replace it? You might be thinking, this all sounds good, Anna, but you don't know me. You don't know me. I could never do that. Then I can help you, honestly. This is what I teach my clients how to do. This is not about the wine, but about getting honest about what you actually need. I have been there, done that, bought all the t-shirts on this, on all the topics, but especially this one. So if this one really resonates with you, if you're an I deserve it kind of person, I'm your girl. I can help you with this. I want you to book a free discovery call with me. Like I say, this is free. We will chat about where you are. I will listen to what you want and I will create a prescription for you. I'll say, this is the process. This is what we would need to do for you to reach your result, right? I am experienced at this. This is my speciality. I love doing this. And you will then leave that call knowing so much more, and you will leave that call knowing what you would need to do to create the result you want. And if you're listening to this podcast, I know you want that result. So you have a choice. You can carry on sitting, trying to do it yourself, trying to figure it out, not understanding why it's not working, and just really feeling alone. Or you can do this alongside me, where I will map for you the exact path to get you to where you want to be. I know the shortcut route that will really create the new habits that you want, that will create the new life that you deserve. You do not deserve the wine. You deserve the best life you could possibly have. To get time with me, go to 90dayslater.co and click on book a call, or you can click on the link in the show notes for this podcast. This has been such a delight to share this episode with me. So do me a favor, share it with somebody you love. Share it with somebody who you think needs to hear these words today. And don't forget to book your discovery call with me. It will change your life. All right, I'll see you next week. If this episode hit home and you're ready to explore what life could look like with alcohol in the back seat, let's talk. I work with people one-on-one who are ready to create the relationship with alcohol that works for them, so they feel powerful in their choices and at peace with their habits. Go to 90dayslater.co and click on book a call, or grab one of the free guides in the show notes to this episode. And if this podcast is helping you, a rating or review goes a long way to help others find this work too.